Welcome back, you lovely people, to Calendar on Cars, and you can probably guess from the title and the fact that this is sitting here what this week's video is all about. Now, for many of us enthusiasts, the Porsche 911 is kind of the achievable supercar dream, the car that we can maybe save up for a cheap version of and run, and of course, being a Porsche, run almost every day. So this video is all about what it's like to find, buy, live with and drive an inexpensive 997, because to give you some idea, this one was £14,000, 108,000 miles now. Very good, but not full deal history. And in quite a nice shape with quite a few nice bits and pieces on it. So buckle up, if you've always fancied one of these, let's have a little deep dive into what it's like to live with. Now, we can't really talk about the 997 without talking about the 996 that came before it. The 996 was a bit of a sea change for Porsche. A lot of people didn't like it when it first came out, simply because it wasn't air-cooled. It was water-cooled, it had the fried egg headlights. It wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and values tanked at the beginning. But let's be frank about this. The 996 saved Porsche. We wouldn't have the 911 as we know it today without that car. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of the 996, particularly if you're talking GT3 RS. I think that's one of the true icons in the Porsche lineup, real game changer, that car. But aesthetically, whatever criticisms that car had, you have to say that by this car, by the 997, they've answered them all. I think, and again, this is all personal opinion, if you've got a 996, awesome car. And don't forget 996s, if you're looking at the very bottom, higher mileage cars, Tiptronics, you can get one of those cars for four figures. It's a great way into 911 ownership, and they are brilliant cars. But this, the 997, you'll pay a bit more, but in my humble opinion, you get a better looking, better equipped, better sorted car. And the other reason I love the 997 is look at the shape and the size. It's a little bit more resolved to my eyes, and also it's still a small car. If you see a 997 parked next to a 991 or a 992, they look tiny. And to me, a 911 is meant to be a small car. They've recently got huge, but this, just the right size. Baby bear's porridge stuff, this, absolutely spot on. Now, this is the part of the car that if you're buying an inexpensive 911, either a 996 or an early 997 like this one, everybody says, suck of the teeth, 3.6, bore scoring, IMS bearing, the main shaft bearing. And yeah, they can be a thing. If you look at the actual statistics, though, of really renowned specialists like RPM, people like that, the bearing problems on these early cars exist, they happen, but you're only talking about somewhere between 3 and 5% of the cars. Bore scoring, again, is an issue, that does happen. But these are all things you can check with these endoscopes, and they're so cheap now. Get them on Amazon, you can have a look inside. Any good specialist can do that for you. So as long as you're checking these cars, that is a cheap way to a 325 horsepower car. Now, this is a Carrera 2, and to me, that's kind of all you need. 325 horsepower, rear wheel drive, that classic Porsche silhouette. Why make it any more expensive or difficult than that? And this one, which has done 108,000 miles, with a great history. Yeah, the car's not perfect, there's a coolant pipe. If you look at the previous video of when we took this to the Porsche specialist, this car will have things to do, but it's just doing 36 mpg on the motorway, it's driving beautifully, and for the money that the car cost, it's a bit of a treasure. Now, the more observant amongst you may have already spotted why this particular car was a little bit cheaper than maybe the market would have normally made it, because it's Tiptronic, basically Porsche automatic. Now, in the instances of this car, that's actually a good thing, because this car's mainly driven by Mrs. Cowland, and she actually loves an auto. And to be fair, I've driven this car an awful lot. Don't discount it. If you're looking at cars and you find a nice one, and the Tiptronic is the one in budget, we'll do a drive in a minute. They're actually better than you think. And when you think how life is, traffic jams, stop and start. I was on the M25 last week in this. I was so glad it was a Tiptronic. But elsewhere, for me anyway, the other big reason to go 997, if you can afford to, over 996, is just the design of the dash. 996s are so right for the time, but by 997, it's a lot more modern. It's a lot more of the design language and switch placement and appearance that they're still using in the cars today. It's dated a lot better. Again, all of this, in my opinion, if you've got a 996, you know you'll love it. It's right for the time. But 997s for me are just the sweet spot. This one's really lovely as well. We've got extra leather. It's got Bose sound system with the extra amps and the ports as well. It's got heated seats. It's a lovely thing. It's not perfect, but it's kind of one of those cars we don't want it to be perfect. Em drives this car when it's not salty every single day. She wants to get to 250,000 miles in it. It's that kind of car. The odd little chip, the odd little mark, doesn't matter. Just get out and use it. And that is the beauty of a 911. You can drive them every single day. You may also notice as well that one of the knobs has fallen off the radio, which is very common on these, but there are some coming. It's got that thing that all noughties cars do as well, where the switches don't wear so well. All these parts are available and they're not crazy prices. That flat six sound, nothing quite like it. Now, the air-cooled cars do sound a bit different, but I don't dislike the water-cooled engine at all. And off we go. So like I was saying at the top of the film, the Carrera is basically the entry-level car. I always think with Porsches, either by the very bottom one or the very top one, they, to me, always seem to be the best cars. So 325 brake, you could argue, is it enough if you're an amazing driver? But look, it's a little bit damp today. Put your foot down. There you go. That's the wheels just spinning up on an automatic car. It doesn't need to be really fast to have a lot of fun. This is fast enough for me, I think, for my level of talent and ability. This is just the right amount of power for me. So let's address the elephant in the room straight away, the fact that this is an automatic, surely a real driver's car. The 911 is a real driver's car. Cannot be specified with an automatic gearbox. But as I pull off the industrial estate here, we're about to get stuck in traffic. And this is when it really starts to make a huge amount of sense. If you're stop-starting, and I think if you have a 911, you're going to use it a lot, you really are. And because you're going to use it a lot, you will get stuck in traffic, you will get stuck on the motorway, and you're going to be doing a lot of this, a lot of edging forward through other cars, and it's just a lot more fun in an auto. And if you want to, when you get onto the road, you can always click it across into manual, and then you can just flappy paddle it, well, like push button it. It's not the most precise thing ever, but it's not terrible. And I think as an all-rounder, for the money you save, worth considering. So a little bit about this car then as we go out onto the open road. So this car came in as a part exchange with my very good friend Gary at Climbers International. The gentleman that had this car had looked after it, I think, very, very well. It's not perfect, there's a few chips, a few scratches, a few marks, a few imperfections, but the car was £14,000 and the gentleman concerned actually part exchanged it to buy a very, very nice 997 Turbo, which I applaud greatly. But an inexpensive car will have things to do. There's a previous video which I will link to, and there is a playlist for this whole thing, that shows when we took it to Porsche Classic, to be heartily recommended, by the way. Porsche Classic, the main dealers will discount the parts and discount the labour and let you take your car back to where it was born and let you have it looked after by Porsche trained technicians, in some cases at the same price that the specialists charge. I think there's a lot to be said for that. But the fact that they've recognised these cars might want to come back to the dealership, and what they've done is subsidise the parts, subsidise the labour rate. So you can go back to a Porsche centre and a Porsche trained mechanic will work on your classic 997. And in the case of Porsche Nottingham, for pretty much the same labour rate as a Porsche specialist. Now I know what you're saying, all the specialists know more. There's some brilliant specialists out there, but we're very lucky in Nottingham that the tech's there. One of them is an ex-race tech, Porsche race tech, and he's brilliant. So I tend to take my car where it's convenient, well priced, and where there's good people. And for me, the local OPC is actually as good as some of the specialists. Now, of course, there are things to do on a car that was not expensive. When he went to Porsche, they noticed that there was the coolant pipe running front to back, which corrodes on all of these cars, and that will need swapping at some point. And unfortunately, because of the way it's configured, that is an engine out job. That will not be the cheapest of things, but it will need doing. We're budgeting for that some point this year. And also, because you're crashing over some of the bigger potholes with these massive 19s, you might be able to hear it bobbling in the back of the sound there. I think this car will need bushes. Now, you can go OE, but Powerflex do amazing coffin arms and bushes in the softer purple setting, which I think would be a really nice upgrade, just make it a little bit firmer. Also, the dampers on this, I think, at least two of them are the original dampers, so I do wonder if at some point it might be worth upgrading the suspension. Maybe we could do like a little cheeky Bilstein or KW, something to make it a bit more of a driver's package. But as we gently escape Nottingham at 20 miles an hour, obviously we're not in, the police went by, that tells you where you are. This is where the Tiptronic to me makes a huge amount of sense. To save that money, and you are talking probably £4,000, maybe even £5,000. If this car was a manual in this spec, I guarantee it would have been the thick end of 20k. And if your other half really likes driving automatic, as mine does, and it's really her car, then why would you not save that money? But actually, the more I drive this car, the more I drive the automatic Porsche 911, the more I can see the point. The ideal world, I think you'd have one of each. I think you'd have a manual GTS tucked away in the garage, which I'm lucky enough to have, and then you'd have this for the everyday. This is the car that if I was going up and down the motorway, driving in and out of town, this is the one you'd want. The other thing I adore about Porsches, they're a bit like older Volkswagens, is because of this era, the quality of materials, the leather, most of the plastics, some of them, as you can see, like on the heater controls, aren't great. But the vast majority of what's in the cabin is wearing so well. 108,000 miles now on the odometer. But look around you. Look at the quality of the seats. Look at how well the leather's worn, the dash, the coloration. Everything is hanging in there. Obviously, it's had an owner that's cherished it and looked after it. But also, it gets a kick in. This car has been driven, used, enjoyed. You can see he's obviously had his dog in the back. Don't mind that at all. It's just the perfect sweet spot. Yes, you could spend more and get a concours car, but why? Get a car that you can use and enjoy, have some fun with, and if you get the odd little stone chip or the odd little mark, or your kids scuff the leather because you're always taking them to school, surely that's what it's all about. The other thing I love about this car is, believe it or not, here we are smoking around town. The average of everything at the moment, I'm getting about 30, 31. I was on the motorway M25, where I was moving, believe it or not, last week. I got 36 mpg, driving like an old lady, to be fair. But I don't think that's out of the way. I think if you've got a car like this, and you can smoke it about and get 30 something from it, which I think is very possible to do, that's pretty decent, isn't it? That makes it daily drivable when you can get into those kind of numbers. And also, if you can get insurance with Haggerty or someone that will give you agreed mileage, and you can have this as your high days and holiday second car, I can't see this being a massive amount of money to insure, particularly if you're very old, like me. Right, open road. There you go, and there's the speed limit. Let me show you the car manual. So that's first, second. You can change into third. It won't let you change down if you're going to over rev it, which in some ways is not a bad thing. If you're on track in a Tiptronic, it will only let you drop a gear, drop a cog, when the engine thinks that the revs are right to do it. So you can have some control. I just think you'd buy this car more as a GT than a sports car though, and I think if you did, you'd have an awful lot of fun. You can really feel when you're going over the bumps and lumps in this car, there's a tiny bit of sway, which really does suggest to me that those bushes and coffin arms are going to need doing sooner rather than later. But other than that, and the coolant pipe, from the checks that we've done with Porsche OPC in Nottingham, it shouldn't, fingers crossed, need a lot of money spending on it very soon. So I think we should get another year of just the coolant pipe and maybe do some suspension upgrades, and that's it. I think there are certain cars that make you feel just a little bit special when you sit inside them. I'm lucky enough to have a couple of Bentleys and an Arnage, the T1. When you sit in those, you do feel special. Any Ferrari, any Lamborghini, just that little magical moment when you sit in and look at that badge, you know you're driving something special. It's an occasion. And I think Porsche have been very good at doing that. And also they've been very good at making people feel special in the lesser expensive cars, like the 924, the 944, the Boxster, the Cayman. I think no less magical, no less worthy of the badge than the 911. But the 911 is always, because it's the flagship car, even if you're driving a 7 grand slightly battered 996, I defy you not to feel just a little bit special when you're driving. And this, you get the same thing. I am quite sure that were I to buy a brand new 992 for at least £100,000, the magic of driving that car would not feel any more special than this. So if you can achieve it for 14 grand, why would you not? That's the thing. And I just happen to think that these cars, these 997s, are prettier than the cars that followed. I also think they're prettier than the car that preceded it as well. It's just the perfect car. It's teeny tiny. You feel like you're wearing it rather than you're driving it, which is what a 911 should be. And they just have that beautiful face. Right, now we're out of town where the Tiptronic was amazing, onto the open road. So it's going to feel more like a 911. You can hear those rear tyres thumping and roaring on the tarmac. That's the only slightly scary thing about 911 ownership. If you're on the 19s, I haven't priced those rear tyres yet, but I can't imagine they're going to be inexpensive. So as we turn off into the country lane towards our village, I will go into manual and drive like a flinty-eyed Tillerman. Because don't forget that 5-6 grand we've saved on it being a Tiptronic is probably the servicing and upkeep for the next 2 to 3 years. There's a lot to be said for that. So you can just drop a cog. What a noise! What a noise! So that's the thing, even as a Tiptronic, it's a fabulous point-to-point machine. Like I say, if you look at it not as the ultimate stick shift experience, just as a fantastic way of covering 2 points on a map, it really is brilliant at that. And also, despite the higher mileage and despite the fact I know I've got to spend money on this car, it really does drive absolutely beautifully. It's got good tyres on, it's got good Pirellis on, the brakes are fantastic. The guys at the OPC in Nottingham did a full brake overhaul. We have put a new caliper on it as well. So it goes well, it stops well, it sounds happy, doesn't tramline too much. It's just a wonderful compliant thing. And again, just enough performance to get you across country with a smile on your face. But unlike the GT cars, which are very focused, very hard, very crashy, these Carreras are relatively soft. And actually, on a bumpy country lane like this, I think probably the car that will be quicker. The problem with cars with really hard suspension is, if they're too stiff, you actually start to bump off deviations, and it's harder to keep the car on line. I've always found, for my driving style, more compliant car is actually always quicker across country. And more fun. You know, when you get older with a bad back and fillings to knock out, you don't want them to get battered by the suspension of your car. Arrive in comfort and style. So that is a little drive of the wrong gearbox in the cheapest 911 you can get in this shape. And every time I take this car out, I am more and more convinced it's possibly the greatest performance car bargain on the planet. So if you are thinking of one, start scanning those classifieds. I do think it'll be the best money you can spend. And if you can find a 997 for teens like this, with a great history and a good colour, with a good spec, absolute no-brainer. I do think you'll at the very least hold on to all of your money, and possibly, depending on which one you get, make a tiny bit too. Anyway, back to the studio. So there you have it, a very brief insight into a few months of ownership with an inexpensive 997. If you're thinking of what's my perfect first Porsche, 996 is always the obvious answer, but if you can stretch that little bit more to a 997, I personally feel the advancements, the developments, the higher reliability, to me, the nicer looks, is probably worth it. If you can find that 15 or 20 grand, you should get a really nice car. And the Carrera 2 is the only car you'll ever need. 325 brake, Tiptronic or manual. It's fast enough. It's not stupidly fast, but it's fast enough. There's loads of great specialists. There's the wonderful Porsche Classic program where you've got reduced parts, reduced labour. It's not going to be difficult to keep one of these cars on the road. And it's amazing how many aftermarket parts are available to help you to do it at sensible cost. I don't think they're going to go up massively over the next few years, but I do think they'll hold their money. As long as you found one with a good history and a good engine, as we were saying earlier, it should be a car that you can at least hold your cash and spend maybe a couple of grand a year to keep on top of. But the pride of ownership you get with a Porsche, I think, is like nothing else. And unlike, say, a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, it's a car that you can use a lot and it won't let you down. The other thing is as well, when you come to sell the Porsches with a higher mileage, people always want to buy them as long as the history is good because they know they're a usable car. We've got this one at 108,000. Let's see if we can get it to 250,000. But either way, thank you so much for watching. Do like and subscribe. Do ring that bell to let you know when the next videos are coming out. And let me know in the comments which of the other old bangers you'd like to see a short video on next time.